Again, I want to thank you for joining us for today's session from Astrix, presented by Cognition. Enable your drug development CMC digital transformation strategy with a structured content and data management guided workflow system. Today will be presented by David Cronin, the CBO Biotech of Cognition. We go to the next slide, please. Before we get into today's session, I want to take a moment to introduce Astrix, a little bit of a company snapshot. We are a consulting firm. We've been around for over 25 years. We do professional service and technology consulting and staffing for life sciences. A couple of quick facts about us. You can go back to the last slide, please. We were established in 1995. But we don't work with any one particular vendor. We work with a wide array of vendors, like the great company presenting to you today in Cognition. We try to establish the right technology stack for customers. We work in locations in both the United States and overseas with over 1,200 employees. 90% or more of those have advanced science degrees. Headquartered in beautiful Red Bank, New Jersey, and we help a wide variety of companies from startups to life science to Fortune 1000, chemical, CPG, government agencies, and other research institutions. We can go to the next slide, please. And then in terms of the services we provide, end-to-end service offerings, we like to say we have services that accelerate digital transformation and optimize performance across your ecosystem. This means we help with things in the very early stages of working with customers at the strategic and architecture level, helping you figure out, what is the right technology stack that you need to execute on your company's plan. From there, we can help you select specific services or select specific technologies. That's everything from, helping you develop RFPs. There we can help develop and implement those solutions and even do computer systems validation in accordance with FDA regulations when that's complete. From there, we can provide a wide array of support services, application and otherwise, and we can also staff your organization both in the IT as group. We do scientific and technical staffing. So that's a little bit about Astrix. I'd like to turn our attention obviously to our speaker and introduce David to all of you. We can go to the next slide, please. And then David will pick it up from here. He's a founder at Cognition Corporation, worked over 30 years in life science industry, last 25 improving IT data science models that combine internally structured data items, connections, and deliverables for pharmaceutical and medical device submissions. So I won't go through David's whole bio. It's obviously very impressive. I'll let David pick it up from here. I'm going to sit back and enjoy the presentation, and then I'll come back on to help out with questions at the end. And again, encourage everybody to ask as many questions as you want as we go through. David?
Yes, thank you very much, Kevin. Happy to be here again. I was here a few months ago with Astrix talking about some of the fundamentals of what we call how to structure complex data sets for electronic reports. So today is an update of the progress of our journey so far. So we at Cognition, this is not a sales pitch, but we at Cognition have a solution for structured content and data management called Compass Bio. I'm not going to be focusing so much on the solution today, but more about structured content and data management. So I want to explain a little bit about the background of that, about why there's a need for it, and what it really means, and where we are today on the path on that continuous journey for digital transformation. So very briefly about us at Cognition, 25 plus years, all software, SaaS solutions, on-prem solutions, dealing with everything from med device to biopharma, IVD, lab equipment, all life sciences. So we cut our teeth originally in the device industry, systems engineering, dealing with complex risk management, product development, and moving towards gathering data and content to eventually push out to a submission. Several years ago, we partnered with one of the leading global pharma manufacturers to do the same thing for biopharma. So today I'm going to talk primarily about the biopharma side. As we all probably know, the news is very hot today. The trends out there about digital transformation, there's a lot out there. We know health authorities are moving towards structured submissions. We know that there are consortiums out there looking about how can we put things in the cloud? How can we wrangle and deal with all of this complex data and try to take the people out of the process as much as possible? How can we automate that? So when I look in biopharma and I see kind of where people are at today, I'm not going to read all these bullets, but if we look one at a time, really that data and the data tables necessary for these complex submissions generally are there, but they're not always as well structured as they might be to support statistical analysis, visualization, AI, and other things. And there's a need or a problem sometimes with being able to really create, build, aggregate, and link these big complex tables and reports together. A lot of data sources out there, right? And how do I bring all that together quickly so that I can get these things out into reports downstream? Third bullet, again, I see no one's having trouble with storing data. They have a lot of data, but it's how to get that data into a way that both is human and machine readable to be able to analyze and interpret it, right? How can I actually make intelligent decisions and good filings with all that data? Right now, there's still a lot of manual data entry, and that leads to manual transcription, manual verification. And we do see a lot of issues there with data that may not be as clean, integrity questions, hard to scale, and also difficulty with the chain of custody or auditability. And then lastly, it's not unusual for me to see 20% of full-time employee CMC costs is spent with just working on the documents, just getting that stuff together. How do I copy things? How do I put it together? How do I analyze? How do I make that report and push it downstream? That's a huge number when you think about how many people are involved and how many reports or parts of reports people have to do every year. So this concept of structured content and data management is a fairly new concept. It wasn't being talked about a few years ago. It's somewhat newer here in biopharma. So really, what is it? I was fortunate enough to be an author along with some very intelligent people at Amgen and Janssen recently on this structured content and data management concept. Is available in the Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences, peer reviewed. The link is at the bottom right. So SCDM in a nutshell, we could do careers on it, but really centralizing repositories to have the digitalized data that is clean, consistent nomenclature, consistent and appropriate ontological definitions, structuring that content, the data, in a way that is not always done today, being able to know that when I grab a data set that is not only clean, but I can automate the generation of those complex data tables and the reports to be able to seamlessly connect from source to submission. And not just source to submission for data, but along the way to say, I need to do some AI here. I need to send this for some statistical analysis, et cetera. And at the end, I need a report. And really be able to have that efficient data management. That's getting into the chain of custody, chain of evidence, if you will, about understanding exactly a rich audit log of who touched what and when, who's allowed to touch what and when, why, who approved it. So the challenge we've been facing in cognition is, how to create an application that would deal with that, particularly focusing on the complexity of the data, the narrative content as well, but how to do that in such a way to support analysis of both analytical and process data, how to ready it so it can be statistically analyzed for trend modeling, how to be able to generate those electronic reports as automatically as possible, and how to just overall support the Module 3 CTD. Why Module 3? When we looked at this, we see several modules in the CTD. Module 3, quality, the kind of the biggest and most complex data sets, if you will. This is not to disparage the other modules, but it was really where a lot of the heavy lifting of the bigger data was. So that's where we've begun. Our journey is primarily in the Module 3. If we look into Module 3, the diagram on the lower left, 3 main components, as we know: the substance, the product, and then often a device or a delivery vehicle. Those 3 combined are going to go into the right, into these separate submission packages. And as we know, there are many, many reports along the way. As you're developing the product and developing the process, you're generating a lot of internal reports for phases and stages. And then, of course, I need to do the heavy lifting of my BLA or whatever other formal health authority submissions. So on the left here is a little bit of a view. Again, this is from that paper in Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences. A little bit of a view into some of the domains here in Module 3, some of those data domains in the hexagons, and the document images surrounding them are, sections, if you will, of the CTD, and there's a lot in there. What happens when you look in there is that that module 3 report, maybe 45 different sections, right, to be able to feed into what you need in the CTD. Each one of those, possibly 5 to 10, sometimes even more documents within each section. And then those documents go through, as we can imagine, lots of internal phases, but then eventually when they start to become formal, 3 formal big authoring events, 3 big review events, 3 big verification events. So what we get to pretty quickly is 5,000 documents, and a lot of those documents in module 3 have data and lots of data. Yes, they have narrative, but lots and lots of data to get to that report. And the complexity just on top is that, for climatic zones or just individual health authority submissions, I may have to do some customization for regional submissions as well. So it's a big lift. I like to use this as an example for people who haven't seen it before about what I mean when I say it's easy to get a lot of numbers and make this hard. So imagine I'm doing a drug stability reporting here, and I have this product at the top, it's whatever. I decide I'm going to make it in 2 strengths, regular and extra strength, whatever I want to call it. I'm going to do 3 batches. I'm going to do it in India, Europe, US, whatever. I may package it 3 different ways. I'm then going to take samples for each of those, and I'm going to store them away in various storage conditions for certain periods of time, so that after certain periods of time, at particular time points or pull points, I'm going to check the samples and do testing. So I may run some number of tests, 6 different tests, more tests, however many tests I need to run. I'm testing amorphicity, I'm testing pH, I'm testing appearance, I'm testing water content, whatever it is, on all of those samples, on all of those time points, in all of those different conditions of humidity, temperature, UV, whatever it might be. I get a lot of results from all those tests, and pretty quickly, it's not unusual here that I could have 20,000 data points in that stability report at the end. Now, those have to be captured from the testing. They have to be generated into formal tables for health authorities that look certain ways. And then they have to, of course, be verified, right? And if we're doing this in a non-SDM, SCDM way, it's a verification that can be a bear. So imagine a scenario like this that could happen in the upper left. Submit a filing, get it kicked back with some errors, maybe 100 errors in 3.2 in stability. It could be maybe they were transcription errors, from the multiple source LIMS type systems or whatever, interpretations of how people entered test results, interpretations of how people copied things over into whatever. And in the upper right, you'll see, well, it could be that some of those errors were, different types of testing, stress testing, accelerated real time, whatever they were. The idea is that something like that happens every day in the industry, depending on the size of the product, that could be a couple of months, 3 months, few weeks delay. That could easily end up in hundreds of millions of dollars of lost revenues by the time you correct it to resubmit that you can never get back because the clock is ticking. So there's clear data integrity issues, right? And obviously a compliance risk because you just got stopped. And imagine the health authority, what they think of you, because they are people, and there's a credibility issue, right? If you submit clean things the first time and make it easier for the health authority, then your credibility will increase, and vice versa. And the quotation in the lower right is a friend of mine, a principal scientist, who was talking to me about how we have great procedural controls and SOPs and business processes and job aids. And even with all those in place, there's just an inherent risk in dealing with that many data points in one report that someone has to get in there correctly and then gloss their eyes over to verify to make sure they're right. So our solution to cognition we've been working on for quite some time now. It is a commercial off-the-shelf solution, is what we call our Compass Bio to support the SCDM process. I'm not going to read all this, but essentially what it is in a nutshell is it's designed purely for pharma, biopharma, biotech, CDMO. Laser focus on that. This is not something that was made for the automotive industry that we decided to port over. It's for large and small molecule products. We've designed it so that the applications in it are off the shelf. They're out of the box right there. They can be used immediately, particularly for module 3 today. We're expanding into other modules today, primarily module 3. It is set up to embed the user's business processes. So it's a guided system. It's a virtual workflow approach to it. So people don't have to wonder, what do I do next? Go here, do this, go there, do that. It's set up for both analytical data, stability, batch, justification, specifications, what have you, as well as process data, dealing with your process definitions, recipes, process parameters, etc. The real key to our approach, to any SCDM approach, is the ability to get that data from various sources and to be able to automatically generate the data tables in the formats required for various uses. That's one of the big lifts, right? So that's a key right there, is automatically get it in, identify issues with the data along the way, and render it. And then make it configurable, because everybody does things a little bit different, of course, right? There is no one way, but if you give them an off-the-shelf solution where it's all working, then it's easy to tweak without having to customize, meaning easy validation. And the overarching goal is, how do we remove resources from the process? How do we have an ROI that we can proudly say, clearly say, that will reduce X days of time to create these reports, and reduce Y days of time to verify and to have it right the first time. So it's really getting to the consistency in the automation of the data from source to submission, the tables, the narrative content, and the overall report output. So it's being used by development teams in CMC, regulatory teams, and ongoing lifecycle management of products. So as you can imagine, our approach with Compass Bio is kind of break it down in CMC to analytical process, and then they have these different applications available. Everything in structured content and data management, because it's so data heavy, needs to begin with good data. So I like to use this diagram to talk about what I call internally structured data items. It's just a fun phrase, and what it really means is that everything that you create in a system, and everything means a quality attribute, a process parameter, a test result. It doesn't matter what it is, right? A study, a sample ID, right? So anything you're going to be putting in there needs to be a uniquely identifiable data item with a name, date of birth, an eye color, a weight, whatever it needs to be. It'll have different attributes, right? It needs to be able to render in different ways at different times. I have my bathing suit at the beach, but I put on my tuxedo to wedding, but it's still me. We have to do that very carefully with all of the data items. They need to be able to be used in different locations in a project. So this same CQA that I see in one part of my project may also appear in 17 other locations in a project. It should be the same CQA, not a copy paste, right? So multiple locations throughout a project. It needs to be able to exist over time. So an SCDM system needs to say, I have a comprehensive audit log of I was born here. How was I born? Who was my birth mother? What has happened to me over time? What have I been connected to? Where have I been used? How have I been changed, if I've been allowed to be changed? And who reviewed and approved that change? It needs to potentially be reusable. So imagine if you're doing criticality analysis and you're looking at quality attributes, you're not going to have people just make them up. They've been defined either through a spec doc or somewhere else. And the idea is to have repositories. So I can go and browse the quality attribute repository based on the product type and bring in the ones I need to my project. So they've already been created once in a repository or library, but they're reusable across multiple projects and programs. That's also very important, because it means that when people are working on a CQA, it's the same CQA. It may be allowed to change in different projects from its source, or it may have to stay lockstep of it, of its values from its source. Everything needs to be connectable. I need to be able to connect a quality attribute to an analysis or to an ICH grouping, and to have some sort of testing done, right? Everything has to be intelligently connectable. And if it is a single data item and I change it, it will change everywhere. Looking again at stability for a moment. So simplistic map I know that I have, but I have this quality attribute. Don't even get me started on nomenclature. People use different words for different things. Parameter, analysis, whatever. But I have something I'm trying to study here for my stability trending. I may have measurements on it under certain storage conditions at particular time points, etc. So for example, if I'm looking at amorphicity, I may actually be measuring concentration, crystallization, and dispersion. Those are the three things that I'm measuring, and below that are some of the other key attributes or data items that I need to capture. If we take this internally structured data item approach with the ability to link and connect, it allows us now with this schematic, that you don't have to read it, but it allows us very quickly to say, I can grab these parameters or QAs or whatever quickly from the source, look for issues along the way, and I can rapidly organize them or aggregate them into many different types of table formats, along with visualization, narrative content, etc. Again, reduce that tedious process of creating and verifying the table. And of course, what's the business process that the company follows from source data to submission report? What are the steps along the way? How are they maintained and managed with a careful audit trail? This is really some of the keys to the whole SCDM, is that it's not a Wild West and that people don't do things differently because that's what they're used to. It's a very prescribed process where there's really no room for error because you follow the steps. If I look on the process side for a second, here I am in the maybe criticality analysis. In the upper left, I say recipe. I don't care if it's SC88 recipe. It's a process definition, right, of how you're making this stuff. So S88 says, process stage, operation, action, whatever those are. But the ability to create either from importing an existing recipe that a company has in an XML file or a portal, or not even using a recipe, but being able to identify process parameters, material attributes, and other key drivers at different steps in the process. If I take that type of approach, then schematically, now I can be identifying the CQAs. I can associate them with the relevant steps in the process. This process parameter affects this CQA this strongly. What's my impact or uncertainty, et cetera. So I can have a worksheet that pre-populates. I can let people do their work, and I can ultimately generate key reports from early stage criticality all the way to detailed control strategy and drop in reports right into the dossier. So that's the essence of it. And again, just like in the stability example, yes, there's a process. Yes, it's enforced. Yes, it's validated. And again, how do I go from source, whatever that might be, to a submission report? If you think about it, the person who's making the criticality analysis report at the beginning is actually looking at the exact same table and report that is used by regulatory. It is not different reports for different teams, right? That's part of that SCDM consistency. This diagram gives you a little bit more of the flow, a simplified flow. So imagine I have data in limbs, maybe a stability again. I pull it out and I load it into the system. I transcribe it and I do some import rule checking. Is the data clean? Are there spelling errors? Do I need to merge things together? What are the business processes or steps when I showed that kind of serpentine snake diagram? Did I follow? I set significant figures. I set thresholds. I render it this way for China, that way for Brazil. Spit out the data tables reports automatically based on the templates. Deliver them now downstream into a document management system. Deliver them wherever they need to be delivered. Maybe some of them drop into the dossier. Maybe some go to Viva for formal approval. Doesn't matter. But the key is this last step here, this last arrow, is that especially in stability, it's not a one-time thing, right? Because just over a period of years as I'm getting ready, I'm building this report up bigger and bigger. And then when I have to do, annual product quality review or update, I'm just continuing this path along the way. So in a nutshell, and this is very simplified, the SCDM concept from our perspective today on our journey is to be able to look at various data sources, understand nomenclature, help people with ontological definitions, look at cleanliness, look at the look at how consistently, studied data was entered, et cetera, and to be able to ingest that into a system like our Compass Bio for SCDM, which does this transcription and aggregation with the rules, automate the data table and content generation. Once this is there, the power is those two arrows going up and down at angles. Now I can send that off for AI, machine learning, whatever, or down below. I can send it off for visualization, statistical analysis, trend aligning, because I have clean, accurate data sets. The next arrow to the right reports. The same thing that the person worked on as an analytical chemist is the same thing that goes to the dossier group. And then everything to the right is, hey, you're not going to take PDFs forever. Whether it's a Cumulus or the CASA initiative or all these other ideas, we're moving quickly towards having this gateway submission process with structure. It's going to be a series of JSON files or XML or whatever. No more here's a PDF that based on an Excel sheet that people glazed their eyes over for 3 years. So the key of how our approach is, again, is using this guided workflow. What are the business processes embedded with SOPs and job aids? Automating the creation of the data tables and report sections, being flexible so that I can look at different types of data sources, be able to send out to different types of external systems that I need to do work. So you have to be very modern and flexible with APIs and connections, ensuring the quality and traceability. I know exactly what happened to each item. I know who can touch it and who can't. I know who electronically signed it. And I have this really verifiable chain of custody because of that, because I have the controls in there, and because people can't just type over in the cell and change the source data number from 3 to 4. I know that I have that integrity combined with that chain of custody. So that's really what we're all about with SCDM, right? It's data integrity. It's automation of the reports as much as possible. It's having that single data set along the path that can be used for collaboration and to drive all the other actions. It's the standardization from the nomenclature to the taxonomy and ontology to the table format to the document formats, header and footer even, right? It's this enhancement of regulatory compliance, this ensuring that I've had it right the first time, and the efficiency or cost savings, I have many ROI data points, right? Of what used to take me 40 days can take me 18, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here's how, because I've had this prescribed, defined, guided workflow process. And that's the end. Thank you for having me again today, Kevin. And everybody's welcome to reach out to me if you want to learn more. Happy to have others join us on this journey. It's a big, long journey, but it's a very fun journey.
Great. Thank you very much, David. A wonderful presentation as always. I'm going to go ahead and get the recording stopped here.